Let's turn to Iraq for a moment. We've had 25 U.S. military personnel killed in the past 4 days. And now we are starting to see stories of, the New York Times reports today that the Bush administration is preparing alternative reports to portray us as report, which everybody now knows is going to be a rosy report come September, the magical month of September. We're also now starting to see that even the news media is referring to everybody we're fighting there as Al-Qaeda. Rick, what's behind this?
Wow. Well, it's just like the Cold War. It was the monolithic communist conspiracy until the day China and Russia almost nuked each other in the late '60s, right? And then 2 years later, Nixon goes to China and says we're buddies with China. It's completely cynical. It's very, very sad that the media is playing into this. He gave a news conference about a month ago, and when he said these people attacked us before we were even in Iraq, I noticed, wow, these people, this is what you say to kind of, that's basically a racist anti-Arab statement, as I pointed out. And I did a little research. How did Bush use the word these people since 9/11? He used to use it just to refer to Al-Qaeda and literally the people who attacked us. But more and more, he just kind of used it to refer to kind of all Middle Eastern people. And now we've kind of reached the reductio ad absurdum, where everyone who doesn't want their country occupied must be an objective ally of the 19, Saudi Arabians who drove a plane into one of our buildings. It's sick.
Dr. Walters, give me your perspective on this.
Well, I think that what we've got here is a giant public relations enterprise. It's a switch. And I think what they're trying to do really is to focus the thinking of people more on the fact that they're fighting Al-Qaeda in Iraq. You look at the Democratic presidential candidates, and what they have been saying, in effect, is that they're fighting a wrong war. They really ought to be fighting Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. Well, what they've done is simply switch, and they've said that, well, now these people that we were fighting, that we called insurgents, and some of them were tribes, and some of them were remnants of Saddam Hussein's army, and so forth.
Sunni and Shia both?
And Shia, right. All of that now is Al-Qaeda. And when you look through the reports, the operations that are going on in Diyala and Bakuba and other places, they have now switched over, and everybody's singing from the same hymn book. It's all Al-Qaeda.
Christy, how can the media let this happen again? I mean, this is basically, deja vu all over again. I mean, isn't this the reason why we went to Iraq, was because they're affiliated with Al-Qaeda, because Saddam Hussein is going to give them nuclear weapons?
And the really sad thing is, Sam, that there are still a fairly, decent-sized segment of the population that still has bought that hook, line, and sinker and believes that it was true, no matter how many times they're told that that was actually a fabrication that came out of Dick Cheney's office. I repeatedly tried to figure out why it is that the media takes the shortcuts in terms of describing this, why they would take their cues from a president who has admitted publicly that he has difficulty understanding the differences between Shia and Sunni sects in terms of Islam, which you would think if we were going to go into Iraq, somebody would have briefed him on pretty thoroughly, because that's been a huge, boiling point in that country for years. Why they're taking their cues from him on this in terms of Al-Qaeda, when he's already told them things that were wrong about it from the get-go in the invasion. I really can only put it down to a fundamental lack of understanding and laziness in terms of not being willing to dig into the details.
Rick,
you look at the CIA's last summary that was leaked, from last year. They were very clear that almost all of the violence has been, not Al-Qaeda related, but has been sectarian, violence between the Sunni and the Shia, and also, between some of the sects in the Kurdish population in the north. I think it just comes down to not doing the homework on facts.
Rick, is it laziness at this point? I mean, how lazy do you have to be?
Well, to kind of loop it back to what I said before about how Dick Cheney gets away with it. I mean, they meaning the White House, is cynically taking advantage of the fact that people want to trust the White House. People want to trust their government. People want to trust the president. and not to trust them kind of sends people into this slough of nihilism. So we got these bad actors who are willing to lie and willing to exploit this. And, the Democrats really need to learn how to punch back, not to lie, but to come up with really strong talking points and really powerful pushbacks to basically call a spade, to call the president a liar, and to call him someone who is making us less safe.
Is that Ron Walters? Is that why the media has basically just fallen into this trap again, where they're now using Al Qaeda as the talking point?
Well, no. I think that all along what we have seen is not so much the lack of the press taking any sort of line from the Democratic Party. It is they're taking their line essentially from the White House. They have grown very cozy with the White House in terms of the coverage of this war. They have become embedded. They use the same language. And they are loath, really, to sort of depart from or criticize this administration in the way it really ought to be criticized for these kinds of things. So it's really following a pattern which has been established in their coverage of this war for too long.
All right. Well, we got to go. Thank you very much, all three of you. Rick Perlstein, Senior Fellow at the Campaign for America's Future. You can check out his blog at the Campaign for American Future, entitled The Big Con, also author of Before the Storm. Dr. Ron Walters, Professor of Government and Politics at the University of Maryland, author of Freedom is Not Enough, Black Voters, Black Candidates in American Presidential Politics. And, of course, Christy Hardin Smith, who apparently is fighting a huge electrical storm out there, Christy.
I am, Sam. Sorry about the crackling.
No worry. Stay dry. And, of course, you can read her posts at the wildly successful FireDogLake.com.